Earlier this year, Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, claimed that he wanted the brand to go in the direction of being the Porsche of off-road vehicles. Now, when you think about that for a minute, that's a pretty bold statement to make, to bring up the Porsche nameplate, because Porsche, obviously, for enthusiasts, is like the holy grail of sports cars. But also in this segment, how do you make Ford the off-road worthy Porsche of 2025? Well, we have the Ford Bronco and Bronco Sport, the Explorer, maybe even throw in the Ford Ranger Raptor and also the F-150 Raptor. However, for 2025, we have one huge piece to the puzzle, and that is the all-new 2025 Ford Expedition Tremor. This is the first time the Tremor trim has made its way onto this model, and this is the most capable Expedition ever made. And in today's video, we're going to check out what this Expedition has to offer. We're going to check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a quick test drive, and see why, if you are in the market for a rugged three-row SUV that is body on frame, then maybe taking a look at the 2025 Ford Expedition Tremor might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Acton Ford in Acton, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the 2025 Ford Expedition. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Ford inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For 2025 with the Ford Expedition Tremor, you're looking at a starting cost of just over $81,000, which doesn't seem unreasonable in 2025 because you could theoretically cross-shop this with a Land Rover Defender 130 or possibly even a Lexus GX. And in the past, the Expedition would not be in that conversation or that mix because you would just cross-shop this with a Tahoe or maybe even a Yukon. And yet, here we are in 2025 with a vehicle that is quite versatile in its market. Now, the Tremor trim is new for 2025. It's not the top trim either at $81,000. That's the King Ranch. This does replace the Timberline from last generation. So this is a fifth generation Expedition if the exterior didn't let you know already. Now, what you have here mechanically, though, is something a bit different than the other trims for 2025. You can have off-road tuned suspension, giving you 10.5 inches of ground clearance. That is right, and that's also class leading. So if you're looking for a vehicle that is going to be off-road tuned and off-road worthy with that third row and with this vehicle being built on a body-on-frame chassis, you have that with the Expedition. So this is a whole new look here for Ford. Also, with this model, we have Wild Green. That is right, Wild Green, which is just as bold as claiming that you're going to be the Porsche of the off-road world. Also, with this trim, you're going to have skid plates and beefier tires. We'll talk about this in a minute. But let's talk about the exterior appearance of this model because I think it looks fantastic. What Ford has done here, they've completely transformed the Expedition. In the past, and for the last 4 generations, it's kind of built off of its predecessor each and every generation. Now for 2025, this is very different. They lost the angular and rounder front fascia for something a bit more squared off that from far away kind of looks like a Chevrolet Tahoe or GMC Yukon. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. It's good to emulate your rivals here, especially in this market right now. And we're seeing a lot of this in the automotive industry, whether it's the Lexus GX, the Infiniti QX80, the Nissan Armada, everyone is going towards this design. So Ford is doing the right thing here by being rugged if they want to really be that off-road worthy brand. Up front, you are going to receive full LED headlights and LED fog lights. However, unlike other trims, you don't get that LED daytime running light for the lower portion of that grille. The gloss black trim, though, looks fantastic on this model, and as you can tell, there is some F-150 Raptor inspiration for the design of the front fascia. Now, for the lower portion of the front bumper, you are going to notice those orange accents. Now, for myself, and maybe it's just the lighting, it looks like a mustard color or a deeper yellow, but I'm not going to argue on that. I'll just stick with orange for today. You're also going to notice the color matching tow hook mounts, so that way you can get yourself out of sticky situations for the off-road or maybe even tow out that Chevrolet Tahoe. Now, as you make your way over to the side profile, you are going to have 18-inch carbonized gray wheels wrapped in 33-inch all-terrain tires. This is what makes this vehicle so competitive and compelling in regards to its design and capabilities. So when you are going to be taking on those elements, whether it's deep snow, mud, or even trails, you can do so with this trim. And we'll talk about how these all-terrain tires affect the ride quality for this model. You're going to have gloss black side mirror caps with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. And then better yet, for all you short people out there like myself, you do have running boards along the side profile, giving you easier access into this model. Now, as you make your way around to the back, just like we saw for the front fascia, it is restyled. Looks a bit more rugged and boxy than it did before, and I'm glad that Ford is embracing this design. So from far away, like I said before, it looks like a GMC Yukon, looks like that Chevrolet Tahoe. I do not think that is a bad thing at all. You're gonna have full LED taillights and also lights on the tailgate itself, and you're gonna notice the Expedition badge written out like you see up front. But back here is going to be outlined in that orange trim for that sportier and off-road worthy touch. Then for the lower portion of the rear bumper, you're going to notice the gloss black trim, which is a bit interesting to see because you would think that with Ford going off-road worthy, being more rugged, they would throw on that plastic cladding. And they didn't do that. I actually really like that for this model. A lot of manufacturers tend to throw on that plastic cladding and it looks kind of cheap and takes away from the overall styling of the vehicle. Beneath that, you're going to notice your single exhaust outlet, and also tucked beneath the vehicle is going to be your spare tire. So if you encounter a flat on those road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. But I'd like to know what you guys think about this model, not only with the color, but also the contrasting accents and even the new styling. What do you guys think? Is this a winner for Ford? Is this a great way to become the Porsche of the off-road? Let me know what you think. Powering the behemoth we have today is a 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged V6 engine, producing 440 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with a 10-speed automatic transmission. Now, this power output was only available on the Platinum trim for the prior generation. Now, for lower trims for 2025, you will receive 400 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. Is that a major takeaway for those lower trims? No, not at all. But if you're going with a Tremor, you want to have that max output of power to give yourself that exhilarating driving experience, but then also you want to have that capability when you are going off-road. Now, with this vehicle, though, it is somewhat of a gas guzzler now in 2025. So you're going to receive right around 15 miles per gallon in the city and 22 miles per gallon on the highway for a combined average of 18 miles per gallon. Obviously, you are going to have four-wheel drive here to take on those elements, and better yet, with the all-terrain tires, you're going to have a lot of capability here with this model. So if you're looking for an upsized three-row SUV that is body on frame, you want that power, you want that exhilaration, you're going to find that here with a Tremor. Hopping inside the Expedition Tremor, you're greeted by power-adjustable, heated and ventilated, perforated leather trim seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side receiving memory seat functionality for added convenience. Your first impressions hopping inside this vehicle for the first time is, wow, this is quite premium for an SUV at around $83,000. And that is helped out by the technology, because what you see here is kind of a trimmed down version of what you're going to find in a Lincoln Navigator or possibly a Lincoln Nautilus with that digital gauge cluster. We'll dive into all this in a minute, but really though, what you're experiencing for the first time compared to prior generations is a huge leap forward for the brand. And I think what Ford is doing here on the higher end, especially for the Lincoln lineup, they're pushing the boundaries here from what we expect from American manufacturers. For the seats themselves, they are very plush and comfortable. On long road trips, on cross-country road trips, you're going to find yourself very comfortable here for sure. Now, bolstering isn't too aggressive, which I'm not surprised by, nor am I expecting or demanding, because even though this is a rugged SUV, it's not a sports crossover. However, when you are on those weekday commutes, when you're driving for long periods of time, you should find yourself very comfortable here and you're not going to be dealing with any back pain or any type of fatigue at all. Now, you are going to have the Tremor badge stamped out on the back of these seats for a nice touch. Again, let you know this is not your stereotypical Ford Expedition. Now, on top of this, though, and this adds to the comfort for this model, is that your center console is power adjustable. You can move it forwards and backwards by about 8 inches. And when you push it back all the way, you have a storage compartment here for a smaller bag or two. And then when you want to keep that bag secured and out of sight, just adjust the center console once again, and there it is, it's hidden. This is really cool stuff here, and also for anyone of different heights or body frames, you're going to find yourself pretty comfortable here with the center armrest. So I like that adjustability. On top of this, you can adjust the foot pedals as well along with this steering wheel. It is power adjustable, both are power adjustable, but you have to use the touch sensitive icons on your steering wheel. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say this, oh man, I want physical buttons though. I want to have more of an analog and tactile experience. I will say this, it's actually quite easy to use. A lot of manufacturers are moving in this direction of touch-sensitive icons or haptic feedback buttons, but Ford has actually made it foolproof here. So you're going to have an illuminated button at the top left, and from here you can immediately adjust your foot pedals and also your steering wheel as well. And from here, you're going to have arrows and you can adjust them. This is actually really easy and straightforward. Now, with the steering wheel, though, it is shaped like an egg. And some people, if you haven't experienced a sports car, you haven't gone out on track, you might not like this steering wheel because it is shaped like an oval. However, it forces you to be in a 9-3 position at all times, and I actually like that. I find the steering wheel to be quite nice for a vehicle in this segment because with an SUV the size of the Expedition, maneuverability can be a bit of an issue. But as we're going to talk about later on during the test drive, the steering wheel is actually pretty good here. This vehicle is quite maneuverable for what it is. Now, on the left side of the steering wheel, though, this will adjust your adaptive cruise control settings and also your lane keep assist. So what you see in front of you, yes, is customizable, but not as customizable as you're going to find in, say, luxury manufacturers. However, for the second half of the screen, you can customize this through the infotainment system. But with this digital gauge cluster, though, it's a 24-inch panoramic screen, which Ford claims is the best in this market and largest in its market. And again, lets you know this vehicle is going to be a bit more premium than what it was in the past. Taking a look at the infotainment system, this is a 13.2-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. This is Google-based software, so like every other Android-based equipment out there that we see in the automotive industry, and functions very much like those other head units. So at the bottom of the screen will be your quick access icons for your dual zone climate control up front, heated and ventilated front seats, heated steering wheel, fan speed, fan direction, AC, and then also your front and rear defrosters. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, no more physical buttons, though. I'm not going to like that. This is actually pretty straightforward, and also with the screen being well within arm's reach, you'll have no issues at all. Also, we did see the screen for the first time in the Ford Explorer earlier on in the year, so I think a lot of you are going to like what you have here for this model. On the left side for this screen will be quick access icons, which get you to different menus. So you're going to have your home screen button, obviously, but then also vehicle settings as well. For your auto vehicle hold, driver memory seat, trail turn assist, lighting, brightness, rear climate lock, also valet mode, vehicle status, and settings. You can scroll through all this on your own time and at your own discretion. Beneath that will be all your widgets here. So this menu layout gives you all these widgets for your Google Maps, Play Store, Google Assistant, then of course your phone, AM, FM, Sirius XM, and we're seeing a lot of this now in the automotive industry. In fact, because I've experienced this so often, this becomes second nature to use very quickly. At the bottom of the screen, though, you can access YouTube. That is right, you can watch YouTube videos when this vehicle is stationary to entertain people in the second and third rows. Then beneath that, though, will be your icon, which then adjusts what you see in the center of that digital gauge cluster. So you can leave it blank. You can also showcase your fuel economy statistics. That might be useful with the vehicle in this market. You can also go with traditional gauges, your media, off-road status, tire pressure monitoring system, trailer trip, also trip information, and weather if you want to see that. So I love to see that you can actually customize this screen from the infotainment system. For the top right of the screen will be your bell icon for notifications that your vehicle will send out to you. And then also for the bottom right will be the icon that accesses your exterior lighting, also interior lighting as well. So you won't be looking for those switches or buttons on the dashboard or on the steering wheel stock. That will be on the infotainment system, like we're seeing a lot of right now in the automotive industry. When placing the Tremor in reverse, you are going to have a rear backup camera with trajectory along with the top view camera as well, giving you better visibility when you are parking this vehicle on the street or in a garage. Now you are going to have some other camera angles to work with as well, such as your trailer reverse guidance, and then also you will have a 180-degree view, giving you better visibility when you are backing out of those tight spots. It should also be worth mentioning that when you use your turn signal stock and you activate your turn signals, you are going to have a camera angle that pops up on the digital gauge cluster, so that way you're not curbing those wheels, which is really nice to see. Continuing on towards the center console, you will find your gear selector here. So just like every other Ford product in the lineup, you're going to have that at your disposal right within arm's reach. Next, that will be your gear selector. Then also your volume knob. So you have a physical volume knob. Love to see that. Then a single row of buttons, which This is actually quite common in the Ford lineup, despite the fact we don't have physical buttons or dials for the dual zone climate control up front. So you have your auto start stop button, park assist features, your hazards, your camera systems, traction control on and off button, and then the last button will be your trail control with one pedal drive. You can turn that on or off. This gives you better capability when you are taking on those elements or the off-road. And before we continue on from the dashboard layout, on the left side of this dashboard, you will have your drive mode selector here. So you will have 2 high, 4 low, but also you can go through modes such as normal, tow and haul, eco, sport, slippery, off-road, and rock and crawl, with this being a Tremor. So you'll be able to take on all the elements and also maybe have some fun as well in sport mode with this twin-turbo V6. For the center console itself, you will have your 2 cup holders here, obviously, and then a compartment which keeps some things out of sight, such as a wireless phone charging pad, a USB-C and USB-A outlet, and also the button that activates your Pro Trailer Backup Assist. So that is out of sight and conveniently tucked away. Now for the center storage compartment itself, it is quite deep here, and you're going to notice 2 more USB-C outlets and a 12-volt outlet, but there's enough room for some smaller items, maybe a couple water bottles, possibly a very small bag. So just like we see in a lot of body-on-frame SUVs, you have a lot of storage and practicality up front for both the driver and passenger. Now, what is surprising, though, for a vehicle in this market and for an SUV of this size, no digital rear view mirror. I am a bit surprised by that for an SUV at $83,000. Then to round out the front seating area, above will be a panoramic moonroof, which brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. Then for passengers in the second row, they're greeted by right around 41 inches of legroom, which is more than enough for any type of occupant, whether they're tall, short, or average sized. You're gonna have plenty of legroom here, and also, of course, plenty of headroom with this vehicle being so boxy and rugged. Now you can adjust these seats forwards and backwards on rails to maximize the legroom for the second and third rows. Also, as you can tell, we have captain chairs here, and that just heightens everything to the next degree, where you're going to have a lot of creature comforts and amenities for this model, especially at around $81,000. Now you are going to have heated seats as well, so when you are out on those weekend getaways, or maybe you're going skiing and snowboarding during the winter, everyone is going to be nice and warm. Also, they have climate control back here as well. So 3-zone climate control in the Tremor, and there will be 2 cup holders. Now you're also going to notice you're going to have a USB-C charger on the backs of both front seats. So that way, if you're using a tablet or a smartphone, you can charge those up and keep everyone occupied in this model. Better yet, though, with these seats, with the captain chairs, they recline quite a bit. I'd say by about 15, 20, maybe more than 20 degrees here. And you can just relax and enjoy the driving experience. Really, this is pure comfort here for passengers in the second row. I feel bad for the passengers in the third row, but if you don't have anyone back there, I mean, occupants are really going to enjoy their time on those longer road trips. Now, for passengers in the third row, there is no doubt that this is a 3-row SUV. They're going to receive right around 36 inches of legroom, which isn't going to be massive in regards to a second row seating area. However, I think average size adults can sit back here pretty comfortably. Also, these seats are still perforated leather, so you're not cheapening out here by sitting back in the third row. The bleachers still give you a lot of amenities here. Now, you can recline these seats by about 5 degrees. Nothing major, nothing huge, but you at least find some comfort. On both sides of the third row, you will find a cup holder along with a small cubby for some smaller items, and then those 2 buttons that adjust the third row seating, so that way you can move them forwards or move them backwards in regards to reclining them or having up close to a 90-degree angle. But either way, though, this is on par with the Chevrolet Tahoe, GMC Yukon, and other body-on-frame SUVs that offer a third row. So if you feel like the Ford Explorer just isn't enough for you, it isn't practical enough, upgrade to the Expedition, because this is exactly what the doctor ordered. Now, making our way around to the back one more time to take a look at the rear cargo area. As expected, you are going to receive a power liftgate. Now, it is a split tailgate as well. We see a lot of this out of the rugged SUVs. However, this gives you a nice sturdy placement for some of your gear if you are going camping or skiing and snowboarding during the winter. Behind the third row seat, you're looking at right on 23 cubic feet of room, which is pretty much identical to last generation. Most because for 2025 in this Expedition, it is built on the exact same platform as last year. Now, as you guys know, I like anything over 20 cubic feet of room behind the third row seats, and the Expedition exceeds those numbers. So that is great to see. You can store all your groceries back here if you have kids in the third row. Now there are a number of things to go over here behind the third row seats. So you're going to have your 12-volt outlet, also an AC 120-volt outlet here, so a 3-pronged outlet. Then on the left side will be the buttons that control your second and third row seating. You can power fold those, so a lot of convenience here, and you would expect that out of a vehicle at around $80,000. Now, when the third row seats are folded though, you're looking at right on 70 cubic feet of room. 70 cubic feet, which is huge. I mean, if you're just using this vehicle for 2 rows, you have a lot of space here for all your gear, or anything else you might be doing if you're going on a cross-country road trip or skiing and snowboarding. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at 108.5 cubic feet of room, and that isn't even with the extended version of the Expedition. So what Ford is doing here for 2025 is making this model capable, versatile, also practical, and putting everything into one package here with the Tremor, and I think they've done a really fantastic job on that. As you'd expect for an SUV the size of the Ford Expedition, it feels truck-like, it drives truck-like, and it handles truck-like. There is no low center of gravity here, the steering is not tight like a sports crossover, and really compared to last generation, there's not too much of a difference outside the fact we have the all-terrain tires and off-road tuned suspension. That is most certainly what you're going to be feeling here for the first time being behind the wheel. At lower speeds, you feel the all-terrain tires, especially in the corners that are around 5 to 10 miles an hour. And also, it's very easy to spin the tires here with this model with close to 510 pound-feet of torque. Now, when you're cross-shopping this with a Chevrolet Tahoe or GMC Yukon, I think you are going to like the fact that for 2025, it feels more tech-focused, and also, in my opinion, I think it feels more sporty than it did before. I'm currently in sport mode, and I love the power of this twin-turbo V6. On the brakes, nice and strong, but I really can't corner as fast as I'd like to here. You feel that weight transfer. I love the grunt of this engine. On the brakes, not too bad. Not strong like Brembo's, but that's to be expected. Going to do one acceleration here. Incredible. Now, you would think for an SUV of this size that it would feel slow, lethargic, and wouldn't be able to get out of its own way. This 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 is a perfect pairing for this model, and Ford's been using it for a long time, close to a decade now. So they have perfected this powertrain, and it works really well for a vehicle of this size and for its platform. Now, in sport mode, you are going to notice that the throttle response is pretty active here. And I prefer sport mode for this model, even though normal would probably be the ideal choice for weekday commutes or long road trips. Sport mode is pretty nice here, and the 10-speed automatic shifts pretty smoothly too. Now, when you consider an SUV at around $81,000, you have a lot of vehicles you can cross-shop this with. Chevrolet Tahoe, GMC Yukon. Also, you could cross-shop this with a Land Rover Defender 130, possibly a Lexus GX, maybe even a Toyota Land Cruiser on the higher end. With the Expedition at $81,000, I feel like I'm receiving a lot of bang for my buck here. And I think that $81,000 sounds kind of cheap. I mean, that might be a pretty bad thing to say, or it might be saying a lot here considering where we are in 2025. But, you know, at $81,000 or $83,000 for the model we have today, you know, the technology is on par with its closest rivals. The ride quality is pretty good here. I mean, yes, it's truck-like. It feels like I'm driving an F-150. But when you're cruising around, when you're cruising at around 40 miles an hour, it's pretty comfortable and soft. Now, on poorly paved roads, then again, you're going to be feeling that off-road tuned suspension. But still, though, if you're someone who likes what the Tremor is offering, you don't want to go with a King Ranch, you really don't care about having a vehicle this size that is just going to be more luxury-focused, go with the Tremor. It's still nice. It feels nice. What I also like, too, about this model is that you do have the camera in the digital gauge cluster, so that way when you are cornering, you don't scrape those tires. Love to see that. Now, in regards to maneuverability, we have to first start off with the steering wheel, because I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, it's egg-shaped. What is Ford doing here? Because this is offered in the Lincoln Navigator. And honestly, and this is just coming from someone who drives sports cars all the time and owns 2 sports cars as daily drivers, I prefer the steering wheel because the 9-3 positions are natural to me. And even though you have an SUV of this size, over 200 inches in length, this thing is a boat and a land yacht, it is quite maneuverable. Now, in sport mode, though, the steering does tighten up quite a bit, and I find it not to be perfect for a vehicle of this size, because when you are cornering, you feel as though the weight of this model is getting away from you, where it's like, all right, now I really have to fight the steering wheel. In normal mode, though, with the steering wheel, it's quite light, and it makes this SUV feel somewhat agile in the city and suburbs, which I think is exactly what a lot of buyers are looking for, especially for those of you who need an SUV of this size. You love what the Explorer is offering, but it's just not enough. Going with the Expedition, you're not going to be losing that maneuverability, at least in lower speed situations. Higher speed situations, though, not so much. This is actually a tank on the roadways. Now, in regards to overall vision here, being behind the wheel, the Expedition, you have a nice panoramic view. A-pillars are going to be very aggressive here, so there might be some blind spots when you are approaching intersections or red lights. Taking a look at your side mirrors, they are decently sized. I can see what's my blind spots and the lane next to me. And then looking out back, just like I said with the interior, I wish we had a digital rear view mirror. It would provide a lot more visibility and safety in my opinion, but I can't see what's directly behind me, so a lot to work with in regards to that visibility. Also, looking out straight in front of you, one thing I will say is that this 24-inch gauge cluster does kind of get in the way, but it doesn't get in the way in regards to visibility straight out in front of you, but it does create a bit of a blind spot, and it does grab your attention when it comes to your peripheral vision. Also, the front hood does stick out quite a bit, but that's typical for a body-on-frame SUV such as this. Well, this isn't the Expedition's natural habitat. I'm going to take it on some back roads here, which might actually be useful for some of you if you're maybe going to Yellowstone or any other national park. You're going to want to know that your Expedition can handle the tight roads. And I will say that for an SUV of its width and of its size, it doesn't translate being behind the wheel. There's not much of a learning curve hopping in from a smaller vehicle or car driving this around. Even with the trees right along the street here, I don't feel like I'm getting too close to them. It's just in these sharp corners, I just feel like the vehicle's getting away from me a bit. But I love the fact that even with the off-road tuned suspension, even with the all-terrain tires, the ride quality is smooth, it's comfortable, helped out with these seats. But the suspension isn't abusing you. And at $83,000, obviously you're not going to be expecting a rough driving experience, but for a model wearing the Tremor badge, you're expecting something a bit more rugged. But as a daily driver, and when you're taking on pavement, it's really not too bad here. Now, I think compared to a vehicle like the GX or Infiniti QX80, those two models are going to be a bit more sporty than this. But when you're cross-shopping it with a Chevrolet Tahoe, GMC Yukon, I think what Ford has done for 2025 is most certainly competitive and on par with those two models. Ford made the right decision by focusing on the technology and also, more importantly, the design. Because the Expedition has been around for close to 30 years now. It's beloved by many Americans. But in this segment that is becoming a bit more rugged, more versatile, more off-road worthy. And we never talked about that with the Expedition, the Tahoe, and the Yukon. Those were supposed to be luxury vehicles, right? Like you went with a Chevrolet Tahoe or GMC Yukon because you couldn't afford a Cadillac Escalade. And now, I think for 2025, and looking at where Americans are in this market, they're not necessarily focused on luxury. They want a rugged experience. They want an SUV that can take on terrain. And Ford didn't sacrifice the luxury aspects for the interior, but they gave you something a bit more in regards to the day-to-day use, where this isn't just for someone with a large family. This is for someone who might be active, that has deep pockets at around $80,000. And I think with the design and what Ford has done here with the exterior appearance of this model, I think it draws attention away from people who are looking at buying a Chevrolet or GMC. And while some people might claim that Ford is copying those two manufacturers, I think you could say the same for many non-American manufacturers like Lexus, like Infiniti, like Nissan. They're all going to this style of body. And that's what Americans are demanding. And to give us a model with this amount of horsepower and pound-feet of torque, over 9,000 pounds of towing capacity, you now have a model that most certainly is competitive and competent, but also on the pricing side for 2025, this doesn't feel outrageous. It doesn't seem outrageous or really expensive, which again, it might be a sad statement because of where we are right now in the automotive industry, but $81,000, you can cross-shop this with luxury brands. And I think that what you're receiving in regards to the capability, the versatility, the on-road driving experience, I think Ford has a very compelling choice here. And I never looked at the Ford Expedition as being something special. But I think for the fifth generation, we have something here to work with that is most certainly closer to a Chevrolet Tahoe, closer to a GMC Yukon, possibly closer to a Lincoln Navigator now. And when you add all of that up at the end of the day, this is mostly a model and vehicle worth considering. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Ford Expedition Tremor. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.